All right, good afternoon, everybody. This is Sam Palazzolo. We're going to begin in about 1 minute. 1 minute, heads up. Great opportunity for you to get yourself something to drink. Come on in, get yourself settled in. This is going to be an overview webinar. Should only take us about 15, 20 minutes today, but we'll begin now in about 40 seconds. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Blood, Sweat, and Spears webinar. This is the Business Leader Essentials Workshop. My name is Sam Palazzolo. I'm with the Javelin Institute. If you don't know what the Javelin Institute is, it is the 501c3 nonprofit I founded back in 2017. It provides executive education to leaders, and a portion of the proceeds go to leaders who specifically experience family hardship. Family hardship in the form of what I call 4Ds, either a death, disease, divorce, or a drug utilization moment. So that's a little bit about the Javelin Institute. We're happy to bring this overview to you. Today, it's going to be about 20 minutes in length, and we've got 3 goals for each one of our webinars and workshops. First and foremost, we want to share with you the strategic orientation of the concepts that we're talking about. So today, Business Leader Essentials, we're going to talk to you a little bit about 3 specific strategies. I'll get into those in a moment. But also in our webinars and workshops, we know what it's like being a leader on the front line. So we're looking for those tactical, the boots on the ground moments of what is it going to take from strategy, the 30,000-foot elevation, all the way down to ground level. So we'll spend some time talking a little tactical strategy as well. The third portion is, well, it's all about action, right? So the actionable moment. How is it that we can put into place what it is that we talked about within these webinars and workshops back at the office environment? Whether you're fortunate enough to be back in the workplace with your peers, or if you're doing it virtually. If you're not taking action, you're not utilizing the benefit of the webinar and workshop. So these are our 3 goals for all of our webinars and workshops. I mentioned the Business Leader Essentials, the agenda. Today, we're going to talk about 3 things. These are them. We're going to start off by talking first and foremost about the leader. In 2018, I wrote a book. It's called Leading at the Tip of the Spear, The Leader. And the premise was essentially this, that if you can't lead yourself, how can you possibly expect anyone else to follow you, right? So we're going to spend some time talking a little bit about leader. We'll identify some personal styles. Believe it or not, it all comes down to 4 unique personalities. We'll then transition over to item number 2 on this list, and that is the target. Go figure, a guy who's a former accountant, he wants to spend some time talking a little bit about maybe some financials, maybe some metrics or KPIs, because you and I both know this much. If you're not aiming at something and you miss, you won't even know if you missed. So aim high, come in south of that. You'll still be better at aiming low and hitting dirt. The third thing that we're going to talk about today is the strategy. And that is, it takes a very unique perspective on strategy today to be able to be a leader. And we've identified in the Business Leadership Essentials Workshop what it takes to key in on the key strategy that's going to make you successful more times than not. So these are the 3 items. At the end of our presentation today, I'll talk a little bit about, we're going to throw 2 additional items into our workshop, which will be held next Wednesday. So let's get into this though. I'm typically asked a question about language and relevance when it comes to a leader. Language and relevance. Well, here's what it boils down to for us from a Business Leader Essentials. You got to be able to discuss how you can deliver business outcomes and risk mitigation, coupled with how it is that you can have a discussion about numbers and the business case at hand so that way you can identify those success metric outcomes. These are the two language and relevance keys I want you to keep in mind as we go through the following slides. Got it? Great. Let's spend some time talking a little bit about the leader here, because as I mentioned, identifying your personal leadership style and learning how to adapt it, and perhaps most importantly, identifying what others' leadership styles are, these are paramount for a leader. These are the 4 different leadership styles that we identified. It ranges everything from the classic entrepreneur all the way through the solution finder. So let's take a minute, let's break them down, let's talk about them at a real high level. We've got on the far left-hand side of this slide, the classic entrepreneur. The classic entrepreneur believes that they can do more than anyone thinks possible with less than anyone thinks possible. In other words, lots of ideas, lots of initiatives, very few resources, and probably fewer time elements. If you know anybody who's a classic entrepreneur, they should be screaming in your left ear right now, or maybe you're right, depending on which ear they're sitting on. The second type of a leadership style is that of the modern missionary. These are leaders who aim for more than the mere business success. In other words, they are driven by purpose, right? The modern missionary. That's the second leadership style. The third one on this list here, these are the problem solvers. There's no problem whether they're from Mars or Venus, it's irrelevant. So male or female, both can be in this problem solver capacity because they worry less about dramatic impact than about concrete results. When it comes to the problem solver, they are focused on the achievement and most importantly, driving towards the achievement goals that they establish for themselves. The third leadership style, the problem solver. The fourth and final one on this list is the solution finder. Well, this style is all about incremental results and concrete solutions. If the problem solver's aim is to overcome the problem and achieve results, the solution finder is in search of what that perpetual solution could be. And it's just not a one and done moment. It is a how, now that I've achieved this solution, what is the next best solution that I can look forward to solving? In other words, it's kind of like goal attainment, right? You set goals, you've accomplished goals, then what do? Great, you get to do it all over again. These are the 4 leadership styles here. I would ask you to think about, as you heard me describe these 4 different leadership styles, which one of them best fits who you are right now, and maybe take a look at 12, 18 months ago, which leadership style best fit who you were then. I'll have you compare the then and the now with the future. In other words, in 12 months from now, who do you want to be? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you only need to be one of these items. You can be a combination or an amalgam of both, a hybrid, if you will. And it can't be just one or two. You could be a little bit of all 4, dependent upon scenario. But keep yourself honest, keep yourself straight. Every good skeletal structure has a spine. There's probably one of these leadership styles that you're going to rely more heavily on. And it probably will be the thing that you'll be best known for. And when it comes to that, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but does perception equal reality? In other words, is how it is that you are presenting yourself as a leader really how it is that you come across? Well, we'll talk about it. I also mentioned these leadership styles work best when you can not only identify in yourself and how it is that you lead, but identify others that are around you, your stakeholders. Stakeholders are your superiors, your subordinates, as well as your peers, people that are equal to you on the corporate ladder. Identifying their leadership style gives you some insights into perhaps how it is that they're thinking, but most importantly, how it is that you can effectively work with them. In the workshop, we spend some time deciphering your own leadership style, as well as your most key stakeholders that support you in your initiatives back in the workplace. There's also a great question that I'm typically asked. Thank you for doing so. I see it in the chat arena. And that is, can I take these leadership styles out of the professional environment and put them into my personal environment? The answer is yes, because if you can transition these leadership styles to the homestead, your life may become greatly enhanced and easier. Let's slide on from here. Let's talk a little bit about our sponsors for today. Full transparency, I run and co-founder both of these organizations. Tip of the Spear Ventures, if the Javelin Institute is our 501c3 nonprofit. Tip of the Spear Ventures is our private equity, as well as our business transformation consultancy. That also, the second part of that, the business transformation consultancy, represented by what we call the Zeroing Agency. If you'd like to find out a little bit more about business transformation and what it can do for you as an individual, your organization, get a hold of our 37-page, 128-question business transformation self-assessment workbook. You can find it at tipofthespearventures.com. Onward, let's talk a little bit about these targets here. The targets are meant to establish something to aim at. And your best bet when it comes to target, not only identification, but is how it is that you are going to report out on them. What I've written down here and what this slide is meant to represent is there's really two key elements when it comes to targets. That is that they need to be persistent and they also need to be predictive. In other words, they need to be persistent, continuously reviewed, and they should also be indicative of not only good things happening within your business leader landscape, but also where it is that you want that landscape to look like in the future. You can see here, and we'll go into it in greater depth in the workshop, everything from step one, defining your governing objective. If you don't know what a governing objective is, make certain you sign up for a workshop next week, all the way through step four, which is really in a continuous improvement cycle, circling back, making certain that we reevaluate where it is that we're at for those better improvement opportunities. The cycle should never end. But the key when it comes to target identification is making that persistent as well as predictive. When it comes to our next step here, this is an example of a dashboard. Go figure, again, the guy who's an accountant is going to throw some financial things up there, but it also doesn't only need to always be financially related from a dashboard check-in, just to monitor and measure progress. You also could have some metrics like some key performance indicators. In the workshop, we go through a series of not only key financial metrics, but also those all-important key performance indicators that leaders are utilizing today to not only measure themselves, but their operation. So their team's performance, their department's performance, their organization's performance, and in particular, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities that present themselves within their industry and from a customer perspective. Dashboards can incorporate all kinds of good things. That's what's meant to be represented here by this slide when it comes to target. The third item here is the strategy. I mentioned earlier that we're looking to gain a little insight into how it is that we assess our current as well as our future strategic initiatives. And I'll share with you this much: the concept that we explore at length within the workshop is that of strategic foresight. If hindsight is 20/20, crystal clear, perfect vision, why is it that we can't adopt a similar methodology when it's future forecasting or looking into the future? We want to have that same 20/20 clarity, and the best way to do it is to apply it so that way we can identify not only the sense, the shape, and the adaptation moment of what's going to occur in the months and years ahead. So strategic foresight, that's the concept and the topic that we review in the workshop. As I mentioned, these were the three items that we wanted to talk about here today: the leader, the target, as well as the strategy. This is the webinar overview. We go into a little bit greater depth within the workshop, but I thought I'd pull up here because one of the other questions that I typically receive is, how is it that I can better manage my stakeholders? In other words, I mentioned earlier the definition for stakeholder is your superiors, your subordinates, as well as those are equal to you, your peers on the corporate ladder. In the workshop, we give a couple of different strategies on how it is that you can keep yourself in check and manage better those types of different relationships. If you think about it, the first item that we talked a little bit about, the leader and the 4 personas they're in, I gave a little insight into it. So I would take a look and pay particular attention to that portion of the workshop next week. I keep mentioning this workshop. It's called the Business Leader Essential Workshop. What is it? It's a 2-hour workshop. It is not just Sam, like in this webinar, primarily doing all the talking, but it's meant to be an interactive and a dynamic atmosphere between you and your peers. We'll again cover the 4 items, leader target strategy, in greater depth, but the benefit also comes from, there'll be some breakout sessions with your peers, so that way you can brainstorm, you can get bounces or perspective from, and you can also role play. At the conclusion of the workshop, we always do, because of our strategic, tactical, and then actionable, well, we drive everything to an action plan within the workshop. So it's a great opportunity for us to have a 1-month follow-up. And we do a post-session webinar, 1 month, 30 days from the date of the workshop, as well as a group coaching call thereafter on a monthly basis. So this is our 2-hour Business Leader Essential Workshop. It is a week from tomorrow, same time, same place. It's on the 18th of August. It's $495 per person. And you can find out more about that at javelininstitute.org. If you have any questions, please feel free, outreach. We're here to serve you and your organizations in our leadership development series of workshops and webinars. If you have any questions at all, this is our email address, info@javelininstitute.org. And this also is my cell phone number, so it'll ring directly to me. We put these workshops and webinars together, I mentioned, primarily as a result of the Javelin Institute, the nonprofit that I founded over 4 years ago. You can become a 501c3 nonprofit according to the government by simply offering education, but I wanted it to be something more, which is why it is that I specifically channeled a portion of the proceeds to leaders who experience family hardship. Again, those family hardship moments are along 4 Ds: death, disease, divorce, and/or drug utilization. So if nobody has anything else, let's sign off. Again, I'm Sam Palazzolo with the Javelin Institute. Thank you so much for joining me here for this webinar overview on Business Leader Essentials. I look forward to seeing you next week at our Business Leader Essential Workshop. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to outreach. Until then, have yourself a great afternoon.